we heard about Agenda 21. Honestly, the first time I heard about it was when it came up in a city council meeting in Edmond, Oklahoma. This was December of 2010. And the headline in the paper was that it was a public hearing to discuss the city's sustainability plan. The city of Edmond is interested in, as lots of communities, interested in saving energy costs, being economical, creating a better environment for their citizens in terms of bike paths and enhanced lighting. And so it was an exercise in municipal planning. But the headline was that the public hearing was shut down, basically, because a small group of committed, concerned citizens came in, stormed the meeting, and said, this is all part of Agenda 21. UN Agenda 21 is trying to take over the city of Edmond, Oklahoma. It was, I wasn't there at the meeting. I've read the press accounts, and what I've observed is that the people who came in, the protesters, were probably overstepped because they basically accused the municipal employees of being part of a UN plot. I think they were very offensive to the elected officials that serve their community. Yet they did succeed in closing down the public hearing. It had to be rescheduled for another date. And they made some really wild accusations about the United Nations. I felt like there wasn't much we could do as a local chapter of the United Nations. I mean, if we protested too much that the UN isn't involved in this, it would just, it wouldn't convince the diehard anti-UN people. It wouldn't convince them at all. I did send a note to the mayor of Edmond, and I said, we recognize that you've got a difficult situation on your hands. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know. That's pretty much where we left it. That was in December 2010. In the spring of this year, February, one of our local state representatives in the legislature introduced a resolution to condemn the United Nations, to call for the United States to withdraw from participation in any UN agency, including the IAEA and just World Health Organization, anything you can think of. And it got a hearing in the legislature. We became aware of it mid-February, and by mid-March, the controversy had died down. But within those 30 days, there was a lot of concern about would the legislature pass this item. Our sense was that it probably would pass, and I based that assessment on two things. One is I talked with the chairman of the Rules Committee, which heard the resolution first, and he said, yeah, it's probably going to pass the committee, and it'll probably pass in the House. The other thing was that the Republican Party had passed a resolution, an anti-UN resolution, to get the U.S. out. And this had been, for several years, it's been part of the party platform. And Oklahoma now is a Republican state. It's over the course of 20 years or so, we've changed from Democrat to Republican, and from top to bottom, every office is filled by a member of the Republican Party. So that made us think this is a party effort to make a anti-UN statement. The main thing I think for us as a chapter was to resolve that we weren't going to let this pass without speaking up and doing something. And I think we tried to look at it practically and pragmatically, that even though we had been told that this was likely to pass, and even though we knew that the Republican Party had been on the record, we felt that there were still some moderate, reasonable Republicans in our legislature, and certainly in the governor's office who could be our allies on this deal. So we geared up with, first of all, to address our members and friends of our organization who could be relied on to make phone calls and send emails and get in touch with those key decision makers. I appeared at the meeting of the House Rules Committee, and the chairman offered me 2 minutes to make our case, which it was interesting because the Representative Key, the fellow who brought the resolution forward, he spoke for a few minutes on the purpose of the resolution and why it responded to concerns of his constituents and so on. During the course of discussion of the bill, one of the other representatives, I think it was Representative Dank or Representative Liebman, his question was, well, does anyone in Oklahoma really support the UN? And I thought he was just being flippant, I thought there would be a serious discussion about the merits of this resolution, what it would affect if it actually was passed. But then I realized that this representative was asking a serious question. From his perspective as an elected official, he wanted to know where his constituents were, that if no one spoke up for the UN, then he would vote for the resolution. That would be easy. It was a political decision for him. It wasn't about policy making. It wasn't about governance. It was about how he should vote in order to put himself in the best position for re-election. Representative Key answered his question, I don't know anyone in the state of Oklahoma who supports the United Nations. So that kind of set the stage for my remarks. And I guess the main thing I was able to say was that it's like the poll results that were announced. 86% of Americans support U.S. engagement with the United Nations. I didn't know the latest poll results, but I know this has been consistent over time. America supports the UN. I made that case. And I backed it up by sharing a resolution that was signed by our governor, UN Day resolution. And, if sometimes you think that how important is it for the governor to sign a UN Day resolution? In most cases, it's a nice thing to have. But in this case, I think it was very persuasive because we had a Republican governor signing a piece of paper that said, Oklahomans support the United Nations. We appreciate the fact that the United Nations has a mission to Afghanistan and is working to bring peace to that nation. And this was at a time when 3,000 Oklahoma National Guard troops were deployed to Afghanistan. It made a difference for our governor to sign this piece of paper. It made a difference because in that resolution we referred to a favorite daughter of our state, Jean Kirkpatrick, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations under President Reagan. So our total approach was to show that it is in the interest of every office holder, but even Republican office holders, to support the United Nations, to be consistent about that support that Oklahomans do support the United Nations, have consistently done that over time. The outcome was that in the Rules Committee, the resolution passed. It was 9-3. It was just like the committee chairman predicted. But over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, the resolution was never brought to the floor of the House of Representatives. And there was a deadline, March 15th. You can't move pieces of legislation forward after that date. So effectively, the bill died. And to this day, I'm not sure exactly why it didn't come up. I suspect that the chairman of the Rules Committee felt like he had done enough to make Representative Key happy, to make his constituents happy, that it really was going to cause more trouble and headache to let it advance farther. I think maybe the Speaker of the House had a hand in that, because certainly he had the final decision on which legislation to bring forward. I wrote thank you letters to both of them.
And as did Ted Turner and Tim Worth.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much. I think we were lucky in some regards. If it had come to a vote on the floor of the House, I can't predict what would have happened. But I know that we did generate some response from our members and from friends of our association. And I mean, it was all over and done with pretty quickly. But I was glad to see the way people responded. I was glad that we had resources in place to get in touch with our members via email and generate a quick response on something that we didn't anticipate at the beginning of this session.